My name's June Holloway. I'm 52 years old, Black, and a widow for the past 8 years. I live in North Carolina, Durham, to be exact. It's the kind of place where people wave to their neighbors even if they've secretly reported them to the HOA, and church ladies bring pound cake with a side of judgment. I used to be a public school librarian. 30 years in the same building, dodging budget cuts and mentoring kids who thought books were ancient relics. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me peace. After my husband Richard passed from pancreatic cancer, I held on to that job longer than I needed to. It gave my days a rhythm. When I finally retired, I had just enough to keep things comfortable, not luxurious, but comfortable. Comfort was my goal. Richard and I had built our lives with calloused hands and coupons. No wild spending, no debt. When he died, he left me the house and a modest life insurance payout. That, plus my pension and some squirreled-away retirement savings, was going to carry me through my quiet years. I wasn't aiming for cruises and champagne, just a back porch, my azaleas, and some damn peace. But apparently, comfort and quiet offend some people. Enter my only son, Trevor. He's 28 now, but you wouldn't guess it from the way he acts. Always got some big project or investment opportunity going on, none of which seemed to generate income. He's one of those boys who peaked in high school, varsity football, prom king, all that crap, and has been coasting on charisma and charm ever since. And then there's Amber, his wife of 2 years. If you took an Instagram filter, wrapped it in yoga pants, and gave it a superiority complex, you'd have Amber. She's the kind of woman who says things like manifest abundance while using your Netflix login. They started visiting more last year. At first, it was sweet. Trevor hadn't come around much since Richard died. I assumed it was grief. Turns out, it was strategy. One Sunday, over meatloaf and mashed potatoes, Trevor leaned in with that concerned son voice. You know the one. Mom, have you thought about, a contingency plan? You know, if something happened to you. I just want to make sure you're protected. Amber chimed in, rubbing my hand like I was on life support. We've been reading about how older folks can get scammed or forget stuff. You should really consider signing a power of attorney. It's just paperwork. Power of attorney. The 3 words that should have made alarm bells go off. But they didn't. Not right away. They played it well. Said it was just so they could help manage bills, make medical decisions if something ever happened. They even threw in a story about Amber's poor Mima, who lost everything to identity theft because she didn't have someone she could trust. And stupid me, I trusted them. So I signed. Right there at the kitchen table, not knowing I'd just handed my life over like a damn Blockbuster membership card. A neat little notarized betrayal. I didn't know it yet, but the moment that pen hit the paper, I stopped being June Holloway, homeowner and retired librarian. To them, I became an asset. A slowly expiring one. You ever have that weird, twisting feeling in your gut, the one that doesn't scream but whispers? The kind that makes you double-check if you locked your front door even though you know you did? That feeling started creeping up about 6 weeks after I signed the papers. At first, everything seemed normal. Trevor would swing by on Sundays to help with the trash bins or install updates on my laptop, even though I've been using a computer longer than he's been alive. Amber brought vegan banana bread that tasted like wet cardboard and called it gut healthy. But the real change? My bank account started feeling lighter. Now, I'm not a fool. I balance my books. I may not be Warren Buffett, but I know how many zeros are supposed to be there when I log in. And that one morning, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee and my login screen glowing in front of me, I saw a number that damn near made me spill the whole cup. My retirement account, the one Richard and I spent 30 years feeding like a sacred cow, was down by almost $19,000. At first, I thought maybe the market dipped. I checked the performance charts. Nope, investments were fine. Then I checked the transaction history. 2 large transfers. One labeled external account, the other liquidation, discretionary withdrawal. Now, here's the kicker. I didn't do that. Cue the blood pressure spike. So I did what any rational woman would do. I called the bank. And you know what the lady on the other end said, in her bright, professional tone? "Oh, Mrs. Holloway, those transfers were authorized through your power of attorney. We confirmed it with your son." I swear the earth tilted under me. I wanted to scream, but my voice came out like static. He didn't tell me he was taking money. "Legally, ma'am," she said, "he doesn't have to. He's your agent now." I hung up, heart pounding. The walls felt smaller somehow, like my house was shrinking around me. My world, my carefully built life, was being sold off, and I hadn't even been invited to the auction. So I confronted them. Invited Trevor and Amber over for dinner. Lasagna. Garlic bread. A big OL salad. Something to make it feel normal, make me feel normal. And when we sat down, I didn't waste time. "What's going on with my retirement account?" I asked. Trevor didn't blink. "Oh, that. Yeah, we had to move some stuff around." "We?" "Yeah, Amber and I. You weren't using it, and we figured you'd want to help us get ahead. It's an investment in the future." "Your future, Trevor." "Well, yeah." Amber jumped in then, all sugar-sweet with that chirpy voice that grates like a rusty cheese grater. "You're not planning on traveling or anything, right? And we're thinking about IVF. It's so expensive. IVF. As if my life savings was the family fertility fund. I stared at them. Not angry yet. Not crying. Just blank. Numb. And that's when Trevor leaned in, said the thing that snapped something deep in my chest. "Come on, Mom. Let's be real. You're not gonna need that money for long anyway." He smiled when he said it, like he was talking about throwing out expired milk. After Trevor dropped that line, "You're not gonna need that money for long anyway," I didn't scream. I didn't throw them out. I didn't flip the table, though Lord knows I saw a version of myself in my mind doing just that. Flipping the lasagna, garlic bread, salad, and that smug little smile right into his lap. But no, I smiled. It wasn't real, and it didn't reach my eyes, but it was enough. Enough to keep the peace. Enough to make them believe I was still the naive, grateful, lonely old woman they'd convinced themselves I was. I cleared the plates while they talked about baby names and Zillow listings. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat up with a notebook and a glass of boxed wine, scribbling ideas, checking account numbers, cross-referencing legal sites on my phone like I was cramming for the bar. I wasn't thinking like a victim anymore. I was thinking like a woman with nothing to lose. Let me tell you a little something about North Carolina law. Under General Statute Section 32C, power of attorney is not a free-for-all. Even if you sign one over, your agent, meaning the person acting on your behalf, has a legal obligation to act in your best interest. There are limits. They can't just drain you like a juice box without consequences. Not unless you're incapacitated or too confused to know better. That gave me an idea. What if I played along? What if I let them believe their own fiction? That I was slipping, forgetful, a little wobbly upstairs. So I started performing. I'd ask what day it was twice in one conversation. Misplace my glasses even though they were on my head. I put salt in my coffee and sipped it like it was fine. I even called Amber Ashley one afternoon just to see if she'd correct me. She didn't. Trevor, meanwhile, was thrilled. "I think she's really starting to decline," I heard him whisper in the hallway one day when he thought I was napping. "We should talk to the estate lawyer. If we don't act now, she could make things messy." Messy. That word stuck with me. Because messy is what you call it when someone doesn't just die quietly and leave you their stuff. I knew I couldn't confront them yet. Confrontation gives people time to pivot, cover tracks, manipulate. No, I needed documentation, witnesses, legal leverage. So I did something I'd never done before. I called a lawyer. Her name was Dana Walsh. Tough as nails, direct, and blessedly immune to sugar-coated bull. She met me at a cafe the next afternoon. I told her everything: power of attorney, missing funds, the manipulation. She listened, took notes. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You've got a case. But we have to play it smart. Quiet. And you have to keep acting." I sipped my lukewarm coffee and nodded. "You want me to play a fool?" She smiled. "No, ma'am. I want you to play them." Dana had a phrase for it: controlled incompetence. "You're going to be the most adorable little liability they ever underestimated," she said over our second meeting. "Just enough forgetful to justify what they're doing. Not enough to declare you legally incompetent. You need to thread the needle, June." And thread it I did. I bought a cheap pair of reading glasses and started losing them. I labeled my pantry shelves with masking tape, pasta, canned goods, toilet paper, as if I couldn't remember what went where. I started keeping sticky notes on the microwave with instructions like press start after entering time. Amber saw that one and said, "Poor thing. Maybe we should look into a senior home." I smiled at her and said, "Do they let you bring cats?" "I don't have a cat." Meanwhile, Dana got to work like the quiet hammer she is. She filed for a forensic review of my financial accounts, quietly, under my name, but with notice to Trevor, per state law. She told me to expect pushback, but also that the moment they contested it, they'd show their hand. That contest came 2 days later when Trevor called me in a rage. "Why are we getting notices about an investigation?" "What the hell, Mom?" "Oh dear," I said, feigning panic. "Did I sign something wrong again?" "I forget things, you know." "You didn't tell us you were talking to a lawyer." "I didn't know I needed to," I said, adding a little tremble to my voice. He calmed down almost instantly. That's when I knew he needed me confused. It was the shield that let him keep pretending what he was doing wasn't illegal. Or maybe he really thought it wasn't. Maybe Amber had convinced him it was family stewardship, not theft. "Either way," he said, "don't worry, we'll handle it," and hung up. I smiled, because that's what I wanted him to say. That week, I started recording things. You can do that in North Carolina, single-party consent. As long as I'm part of the conversation, I can hit record without telling anyone. So I did. Every phone call. Every passive-aggressive Amber comment. Every conversation about the need to sell the house or streamlining Mom's life. Trevor saying things like she won't even remember this in 6 months while helping himself to my bourbon stash. They got bold. Too bold. Amber started bringing over catalogs from exclusive senior communities, whispered things about downsizing. She brought a real estate agent to my house, told me he was just curious about the market. He looked at my walls, my porch swing, my rose bushes like they were marked for demolition. I offered him tea and asked if he'd seen my dead husband. "He's around here somewhere," I said. His smile faltered. Amber just laughed and said, "Oh, you're so funny." Funny? I wasn't funny. I was gathering ammo. Let me tell you something strange. When someone decides you're disposable, they stop pretending to be gentle about it. It started with my mother's wedding ring. It's not fancy, just a narrow gold band, worn thin and warm with age. She wore it until her fingers were too swollen, then gave it to me the night before my wedding, telling me it's not the ring that makes the marriage, but it can remind you why you stayed. I kept it in a velvet box in my dresser for 25 years. One morning, I opened the box and it was gone. I searched everywhere. I tore that room up. Under the dresser. Behind the nightstand. Inside my winter coat pockets. I even crawled under the bed, where I found nothing but dust bunnies and an old sock that wasn't mine. I asked Trevor about it the next time he came by. He didn't even blink. "Maybe you lost it, Mom." You know you've been forgetting things lately. That one sentence stopped me cold. It was the first time he said it out loud. That idea, my decline, my supposed mental fog, that was the crutch they were ready to lean on when they needed to explain away whatever came next. Amber didn't help. "We'll check the pawn shops just in case," she said sweetly, patting my shoulder like I was her senile aunt in a Hallmark movie. I didn't ask her why she was looking at a $4,000 Italian leather handbag online last week. But I made a note of it. At that point, I started keeping a written inventory, every object of value in my house. Jewelry, yes, but also things with emotional weight. Richard's pocket watch. The signed Maya Angelou print in my guest room. The antique quilt my grandmother sewed before she went blind. Then I checked my closet. 4 of my dresses were missing. I didn't notice right away because they weren't the kind of clothes I wear anymore. But they were designer dresses, gifts from Richard when he still had strength in his hands and romance in his chest. I remembered seeing Amber's Instagram story a few weeks back. She was at a winery with her friends, laughing in a champagne-colored wrap dress. I zoomed in on the photo. It was my dress. She had the audacity to crop out my face in the mirror behind her. When Dana saw the photos and the bank statements, she sat back in her chair and crossed her arms. "They're building a case that you're incompetent, June. They're taking your things. If they sell that house while they have POA and convince a court you're unfit to manage your own affairs, you'll never get it back. You'll be broke, in a state-run care facility, while they live off your memories." I swallowed. It was the first time the fear felt real. Dana leaned forward. "We can't let that happen. But if we're going to stop them, you have to let this play out a little longer." "Like how long?" she sighed. "Until they go for the house." And that's when I knew what my role had to be. I wasn't just the mark. I was the trap. You know what's funny? When people are stealing from you slowly, they act like they're doing you a favor. When they want to finish the job, they start acting like heroes. Trevor showed up one afternoon with takeout, something he hadn't done in months. Orange chicken and lo mein from the place we used to go when he was little. Back then, he'd sit across from me in his little hoodie and read fortune cookies like they were prophecies. "Mommy, it says I'll be rich." He wasn't wrong. He just didn't tell me he planned to rob me for it. That day, he sat me down like I was about to receive terrible news. "Mom," he said, putting on his concerned son face, "Amber and I have been doing a lot of thinking. We think it might be time to sell the house." My stomach went cold. He went on like I wasn't even there. "It's too much for you. Too many stairs. That backyard is a lot of work. You'd be more comfortable in a retirement community, something with amenities." "Amenities," he said, like he was offering me a goddamn yacht. Amber chimed in. "And we already talked to a realtor. We think we could get a really good price, way more than it's worth." We talked to a realtor. That's when I realized the realtor had already been here. That man who happened to be in the area, the one Amber brought over during the tea visit, he wasn't browsing. He was appraising. I blinked real slow. "I don't remember signing anything about that." Trevor smiled, gently patronizing. "You don't need to. That's what the POA's for. You're protected. We're just simplifying things. Protected." Like I was a wounded dog they were putting down gently. I forced myself to look confused, sad, tired. I sniffled. "Oh, I guess that makes sense." They beamed, like proud zookeepers who'd finally convinced the elephant to climb into the truck. Later that evening, I opened the locked filing cabinet in my bedroom, the one they didn't know about. I pulled out a manila folder labeled Mayhem in Sharpie because I'm dramatic like that. Inside were copies of the bank withdrawals, text transcripts Dana had helped pull from my call logs, the inventory of stolen or misplaced items, and, most importantly, a full audio file from that afternoon. "Trevor, we can list it under market, make it move fast." Once she's out, we'll remodel it and flip. Amber, she won't know the difference. I closed the folder and smiled. See, they thought I was playing checkers. But I was playing the long game. Paper trails. Audio. Legal timing. Dana told me we had almost everything. We just needed one more thing. Intent. Clear, indisputable evidence that they were acting outside my interests, not just as careless family, but as predators. That's when I made a plan. The house was the bait. The sale would be the bite. And when they lunged for it, they'd find the hook buried so deep they wouldn't be able to breathe. The best part about playing dumb is that people show you who they really are. When they think you're not smart enough to catch them, they drop the act entirely. After our little family discussion about selling the house, things moved fast. Trevor was practically giddy. He brought over papers, documents he said were just basic real estate authorizations. Amber sat beside him, legs crossed, flipping through Zillow on her phone like she was already picking out backsplash tile. Trevor slid a pen across the table. You don't need to read all that, Mom. It's just standard stuff. I've got it under control. I picked up the pen, stared at the line marked homeowner signature. Then I looked at him and said, "What's today's date again?" He smiled, leaned in, and told me. I made a little note in the margin, just a dot really next to the date. A Q for Dana. Then I said, "I trust you, baby," and signed. The look on Trevor's face was like someone who just realized they'd been handed the keys to a sports car and a freeway with no speed limit. Perfect, he said. We'll get it listed this week. Amber added, "We'll keep you updated, of course." Of course. I made myself some chamomile tea after they left and stared out the window. My rose bushes were in full bloom. Late for the season, but stubborn like me. Richard used to say those roses could survive the apocalypse. So could I. The next morning, Dana filed the court petition. Let me explain how it works. In North Carolina, a power of attorney can be challenged and revoked if it's being abused, especially if the principal, me, is still competent and the agent, Trevor, is found to be acting outside of their fiduciary duty. That's legal speak for he's screwing you and the court will care. We filed a motion for revocation of Trevor's POA, full reinstatement of my financial autonomy, and an emergency injunction to halt the sale of the house. Dana timed it perfectly, just hours before the open house they scheduled behind my back. Trevor got the paperwork at 9:42 a.m. I know because he called me at 9:44. What the hell is this? Oh dear, I said, just waking up. Is something wrong with the house thing? I thought we were, what's the word? Collaborating. You're trying to take the POA back? Well, I said, I had a long chat with a nice woman at Legal Aid. She said something about misappropriation of funds. Sounded serious. I could hear Amber in the background, swearing. He didn't yell. That was the most telling part. Trevor's voice went cold. Flat. You don't know what you're doing, Mom. I smiled, swirling my tea. That's the thing, sweetheart. I do. The thing about court is, it's not what you think. It's not law and order. There's no dramatic gavel slam, no shocked gasps from the gallery. It's quiet, stiff, carpeted in beige. You could hear a bad heart valve in there. But you know what court does have? Receipts. And, baby, I brought receipts like I was testifying on a daytime talk show. I wore a navy blue dress, pearls, and the calm of a woman with nothing left to fear. Dana sat beside me, cool as winter, flipping through our file, the same one I'd started in that wine-soaked haze months ago. Trevor sat across from me at the respondent's table, freshly shaved, buttoned up, and trying to look like concerned son of the year. Amber sat next to him in a stiff beige blazer, like she thought dressing like a substitute teacher would erase her Instagram history. The judge, middle-aged, white, sharp as cut glass, looked at me, then at Trevor. "Mrs. Holloway, You're requesting revocation of your current power of attorney? Yes, Your Honor, I said, steady. Due to financial abuse and breach of fiduciary duty. Trevor's lawyer tried to play it soft. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. My client has simply been managing his mother's affairs as permitted by the POA. Any funds moved were for her benefit. Dana stood, cool as ever. Permission to introduce evidence that the funds were used to purchase a luxury SUV, spa memberships, and designer clothing for Mr. Holloway's wife? The judge raised an eyebrow. Granted. Click. Exhibit A. Bank statements. Tens of thousands gone. Click. Exhibit B. A screenshot of Amber's Instagram, where she's holding a designer handbag purchased the same day a withdrawal hit my account. Click. Exhibit C. An audio recording me asking where my mother's wedding ring went, and Trevor saying she's losing it. Just play along. The judge looked at Trevor. Did you say this? Trevor squirmed. I didn't mean she's been forgetful. Dana cut in. My client passed a cognitive assessment last month. Her memory, executive function, and judgment are all intact. She is legally and mentally competent. This forgetfulness is a fabrication designed to justify unauthorized spending. Silence. Then the judge turned to me. Mrs. Holloway, do you feel safe continuing with your son as your legal agent? I folded my hands in my lap. No, Your Honor. I trusted him. I believed him. And he treated me like I was a burden waiting to die. That's not stewardship. That's theft. Another silence. But this one was different. This one was mine. The judge didn't yell. He didn't slam his hand on the desk. He didn't even raise his voice. He just leaned forward, looked over his glasses at Trevor, and said, "This is not a gray area, Mr. Holloway. This is a clear breach of fiduciary duty, bordering on criminal behavior." Trevor shifted in his seat like the cushion had turned to stone. Amber stared at her phone because even in court, even under oath, she couldn't put it away. The judge turned to me next. Mrs. Holloway, I am revoking the existing power of attorney effective immediately. Your son is no longer authorized to act on your behalf in any legal or financial matter. Dana didn't smile. She just nodded, one sharp dip of the chin. Professional satisfaction. But me? I didn't smile either. I just exhaled. The kind of breath I hadn't taken in over a year. The kind that feels like standing up after carrying something far too heavy, far too long. Then the judge dropped the second hammer. As for the financial mismanagement, I am referring this case to the district attorney's office for further review under elder exploitation statutes. And, as requested by Mrs. Holloway's counsel, I am granting a temporary injunction on all access to her accounts, assets, and property by Mr. Holloway and his spouse until the DA completes their investigation. Translation: Don't touch a damn thing, or you might do it from jail. Trevor didn't look at me when it was over. He just muttered something to his lawyer and stalked out of the courtroom, red-faced and stiff like his spine had been replaced with concrete. Amber followed behind him, heels clicking too fast, muttering into her phone, probably to her sister, probably complaining that this is all so unfair. Dana and I walked out slowly. She was already talking next steps, asset recovery, damage claims, the possibility of pressing charges if the DA decided to move forward. But I wasn't listening to her yet, because when I stepped into the sunlight outside that courthouse, something inside me shifted. I was free. Not just legally, but emotionally. The fog of manipulation, guilt, and quiet, heavy sadness that had followed me since the day I signed that damned power of attorney, gone, burned off like morning mist. That night, I poured a glass of red wine, pulled out my notebook, and flipped to the last page where I'd written one sentence back in the beginning. If they think I'm dying, let them die trying to rob me. Underneath it, I wrote, they failed. It's spring again. The roses in my backyard are blooming earlier than usual, thick, stubborn, defiant. Richard used to say they were survivors. I think maybe that's why I love them so much. They don't just grow, they endure. Even after a hard frost, even after careless hands try to rip them up by the roots, they come back. Just like me. 3 months have passed since the hearing. Trevor hasn't spoken to me since. Not a call, not a text, not a single guilt-soaked voicemail. I heard through the grapevine that he and Amber moved into a rental 2 towns over. Sold the SUV. Amber deleted most of her social media after someone tagged the DA's press release under one of her wellness lifestyle posts. Their names aren't trending anymore. Mine, though? Mine is clear. My accounts are safe, frozen, and then refortified under my name alone. Dana helped me set up an ironclad trust and living will, my decisions, made on my terms. I even found a financial advisor who doesn't talk down to me or call me sweetie. The house? Still mine. And now it feels like it. I got new locks installed. Not just for security, but as a statement. I chose the kind with the smart app, so I get notified if anyone so much as breathes near my front door. I've started sleeping with the windows cracked again. Fresh air. No fear. The spare bedroom, the one Amber once suggested converting into her yoga studio, is now a sewing room. I picked it because it gets the best light in the morning, and because every time I walk in, I remember how close I came to losing all of this. Sometimes, I still catch myself looking at the door around 5 p.m., expecting Trevor to walk in with some thin smile and another lie. But that feeling fades faster now. Every day, the ghost of that betrayal loses a little more power. Last week, I hosted a dinner. Not out of obligation. Not because it was expected. Just me and a few retired teachers, a couple of old friends from church. We ate too much, laughed until our ribs hurt, and passed around a bottle of wine with no judgment, no agenda. One of them asked me what it was like going through all of it. I thought for a long moment, then said, "It's like waking up after a long sleep and realizing someone tried to rob you in the middle of the night. But instead of calling the police, you caught them, walked them outside yourself, and then locked the door behind them." They laughed. But I wasn't joking. I still have the notebook, the one I kept through it all. I flipped to the last page again last night. The final entry. Peace is the best kind of revenge. Because they can't take it, and they'll never know how to earn it. I closed the book and placed it on the shelf, next to Richard's watch and the ring Amber never found. I don't think about Trevor much anymore. Or Amber. Or the money. What I think about now is my next quilt pattern. Whether to plant lavender or basil this year. Whether to repaint the porch. Whether to let someone new into my life, not because I need help, but because I've got space now. Not just in the house. In me. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not surviving anyone. I'm just living.